Dakota Proclamation by Meredith Quinn, Musa. Salute to activists, those that stand in the way. Considering the crises that exist in the nations of the world today, whether one looks at Asia, Egypt, Vietnam, or India, would make one assume that the leaders representing these sovereignties carry a burden that brings mankind to the brink of obliteration. It would take the very limit of their minds, as well as the lives of their countrymen, to arrive at some neutral ground in their diplomacy, in their bargaining. But none of these combined can compare to the emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion that Indian activists must go through to try and get anyone to look at their problems. He must outsmart, outdirect, and outcoach insurmountable groups and factions that are geared and programmed to destroy his people. He must travel through parts of the country where he is hated and despised, penetrate some segment of the local society, and instigate a situation that will prolong the extermination of the Indian in the local area, dealing and wheeling always at the highest intellectual level, even though he has been cheated and robbed of the necessary education that would qualify him as an authority on the problem he is trying to correct. He is a strong individual. 9 times out of 10, he will have no job, home, family, or money. Possessing an old broken-down car, he will in 1 year have traveled from 100,000 to 200,000 miles just for the cause of the Indian. He is extremely dedicated, he is quiet, moves softly, yet has absolutely no fear. Greatly outnumbered, he will face state troopers, police, army tanks, vigilante groups, and where the press is controlled so that no incident can be questioned being in the violation of his sovereign independent rights. He will face harassment that often ends up with him being at the end of someone's hangman's noose. Unlike other minority activists, because of his unpredictable ways, he is respected and feared. In his business, he is neither a fanatic nor a ritualist. His opposition has a bank account that can draw any number of millions needed. His enemy is easy to find. Government agencies in the thousands, having perhaps 100,000 employees. The name dropping in his business is for real, mentioning such names as Bureau of Indian Affairs, Aerospace Industry, Department of the Interior, Interior and Insular Committee, Supreme Court, Congress of the United States, the President, petroleum corporations, lumber interests, mineral developers, land speculators, universities, foreign and domestic groups on the Indian, America's younger generation out for a kick, 90% of all religious organizations, Minutemen, Weathermen, and the most dangerous adversary of them all, an Indian converted to a white man who is programmed and geared to destroy the very belief he is fighting to preserve. He visits the reservations and becomes involved with their problems, and in due course of time, he realizes that the knowledge he has picked up on what is happening in this country and faces the fact he must be marked for death. Among the most learned men in the world, conspiracy is still only a theory, yet this Indian fights it every day of his life, while others with their facts, figures, studies, hopes for a clue, hopes that their theory could be a fact, wait at the fort, the Indians arrive, hoping for some substance that will give life to the human body and caring little for their plight. These learned men plague these Indians with their studies. tape recorders, and questions. The Commission. But the Indian activist must go on. He lives and understands now that if he should be caught in that opportune time and place, his activities come to an end. But with what he knows, there is no way back, no way to quit, no way to pass it on. Not even for Richard Oakes of Alcatraz fame, twice marked for death, today carrying the effects of a beating medical science gave up of winning with a plate in his head. Can't stop, no matter what. In spite of his family, he must continue on and tell the country that something is wrong and that it must be corrected. These activists, eating poor food, getting little sleep, traveling constantly and being always tired, are schooled in the greatest game of survival, which becomes a way of life. It's worth the gamble, because he can see that the survival of mankind depends on him. The 200-year-old club. Are there any who wish to join the struggle to help stop the genocide programs against the Indians? Not only this country, but all countries where they have cultural Indians. It's a game that in 200 years has never had an ending. Before you say yes, remember that in this game, it's played for keeps. So if you get mad and want to pick up your marbles and go home, the only place left is the happy hunting grounds. Those little pieces of metal flying through the air are for real. Those who joined, welcome. You have just given up your family, name, future, friends, and life. If your activities take you through the great American way, sometimes referred to as the tulip patch, you'll discover that it's a war zone, no man's land. You will never live longer than 5 years unless you've learned your lessons well and have become a second James Bond. And in our business, Agent 007 could take lessons. The reason of the commission. Your main purpose is to keep the culture and reservations of the Indians alive till we are united on the day of the Great Migration, according to the prophecies, in which we will come into our own, both North and South America, in unity and love. You will have to be careful, because the government, too, has sent many sellout Indians claiming to be that prophet. For the non-Indian that has joined our struggle, this is the one you have to watch out for. He knows every trick that the cultural Indian has. To get admiration from the white man, he will tell everything he knows. I wish there was some way to show you how to isolate his techniques, but there isn't. This is the type that is responsible for the murdering of our leaders. When you become effective, you prevent money from getting Indian land, water, and the minerals which he is sitting on. This same money can buy your life dead. But it must always appear as an accident or as an act by your own hand. The technique of getting you into this opportune place and time can only be done according to your habits. So change them. Eat, sleep, and travel in different patterns and time. With this, you become the most hunted person in the world. Your daily walk must be done in peace. These are the wishes of the traditionalist, because we are not at war. I'm going to, at this time, show you what to look for, so that you can get to the bottom of the problem in your area. These are just some. You will find others that will lead you to the same technique. With the aerospace industry taking over the education of the Indian, I have only minor involvements that I can pass on. Know the Indian you are fighting for. First, you are fighting to preserve the culture of the Indian. And this Indian is the one that has sat on the reservation, hoping someone would come to his aid. There will be many involvements and situations that will steer you away from it. One situation will be comprised of those Indians that have left the culture and want to find themselves or go back to the Indian way. There are two factions behind this group. The first, being university studies groups, is maneuvering these militants into a communication place so that they will have a better chance to accumulate culture and languages of the reservation Indian. The second group is trying to move these activists into a union of a new Indian nation. The support and background of this group is to use the Indian and other minorities as a protection front, since this faction plans an overthrow of the present government of the United States. Don't get me wrong. I believe in living and let live, but keep my people out of your funny wars. We have a cause that has preference to yours. The clues that point the beginning. But back to the fight. Try and gather information on everything that you think is harming the Indian, such as the BIA trying to make old people sign their Indian land away, lawyers and senators promising Indians more money or a better place to grow crops if they agree or approve some Senate bills or sign on the dotted line, or the government getting ready to pay a lot of money. But first, asking the Indian to pay for roads, schools, buildings, or water that everyone is using but does not belong to the Indian. Or, here's a real popular one. The city of such and such has no money and they can't pay your lease money. Or, there's a news release stating of a large Indian settlement of $1 million or so, only $8,000 reaches the Indian. Look out for new highways. Without fail, there are deaths to Indians that live along the proposed highway. Look out for new housing projects. It means that part of the reservation is being terminated. Look around for new real estate companies. Now, when the police or members of the BIA, sellout Indians, start beating up old people or their leaders, it means that a great deal of money has moved into the area. The land must be terminated at all costs. Look for strange new faces in smart business suits or new rich Indians attending your powwows. If the Indian commissioner or Indians from government agencies arrive and leave, it signals that the police, the press, and the state is under control and will take the lands under whatever measures are needed. Or, if necessary, there is an act that has just been approved in the Senate to back these actions. But so far, we're playing with little games. Let's get into the big stuff where I like to play. Before I continue, all the above situations have a cover-up affair, such as a ribbon cutting or an Indian receiving an award. The games and rights of the privileged few. But to be involved and follow the techniques to the development of the wealth of the land which the Indian is living on, now the law reads that before this can take place, the Indian's right of occupancy must be extinguished. They must secure from the Indian his signature stating that he has surrendered the right to the land. In short, termination, in which everyone believes that the Indian can take his rightful place in American society by industrializing his land. It's a lie that has so much money invested into it that if it should fail, the corporations involved would be broke and would never recover their profit basis. To ensure of its success, the finest methods of protection you ever can conceive are present, the cloak and dagger at its finest. When you play in this game, you are above being brought to trial for murder. Every lawyer, judge, and law enforcement agency is aware of its operation in the area and is waiting for the Indian to complain of its activities, because the law of the white man has been provided with phony charges to plant on Indians who try to get his problem heard. I have been accused by my personal friends that I would never be able to live a normal life again because I'm too fascinated by this game. No, not fascinated. I'm overwhelmed because the Indians of the past that played it, who could neither speak or write the English language, fought it to a standstill. And I, educated in knowledge of every trick that the white man can play, can still feel the hopelessness and loneliness of every hour of every day. Now, before you take off for Adventureland, let me give you some rules to live by. Know your area's roads for at least 80 miles around, especially the back roads. If you have a partner, live in different places, drive different cars, and work in different jobs. Live in a place that has a back entrance. Don't have friends, only people that can give information. Too many lives have been lost because everybody knew what everybody was doing. Carry no guns. Have a fairly new, fast car. The enemy drives a blown job. He's not going to be surprised when you show up. He's been expecting you. Know how to repair. Learn how to drive up to 140 miles per hour and up. Now, if they get wind that you have a paper, document, or a picture of what's going on, remember, you carry something that shows evidence, and they have never left a trail of their activities in 80 years. Millions are tied up here, and they will gladly spend another $2, the amount needed for gas, for the pursuit to take your life. Remember this well. The Navajo girl that helped so much with the Taos Blue Lake affair stopped a bullet in the head, and her partner floated down the Rio Grande, face down. This was on a lonely mountain road, and she was driving one of those little foreign jobs with the engine about the size of a lawn motor.